On the mix.
Back to the program, and now we take you now to Asaba, all the way in Delta State, to have a conversation with the Asaba of Asaba in conversation with corporate Nigeria. Now, the Asaba of Asaba is the traditional ruler and paramount monarch of Asaba, the capital of Delta State. The current and 14th Asaba, His Royal Majesty will be Professor Epiphany Chibogu Azinge, will be in conversation with corporate Nigeria in a few days. And this is to bridge the gap between traditional leadership and the private sector to drive the economic transformation of Asaba. Now, the monarch, an erudite legal scholar and former Director General of the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, has pivoted the throne towards a Renaissance leadership model focused on attract investment, boost youth productivity, and encourage private sector and private sector-led development. Now, our guest on the program to talk about this is Boniface Chizea. Great to see you. Long time. Can you hear me, Mr. Boniface Chizea?
Well, I'm hearing you, but you're breaking. You're breaking a bit, so I'm hearing you. Yes.
Apologies for that. If you can hear me clearly, talk us through the strategic goal of the conversation the Asaba will have with corporate Nigeria.
Well, okay. Well, I think that well, essentially, what has happened is that we have our monarch who is barely a year, slightly more than a year on the throne, has come with innovative ideas. He has come and introduced so many changes, set up so many committees, and the committees have discovered so many ideas, so many project ideas, and then we are trying to bring this to sell this idea. So I think that there are two pranks to this visit. Our monarch is somebody who wants to do things differently. He wants to blaze the trail. And so he called me and said to me, I would want to meet with corporate Nigeria. And so he wants to come and meet with corporate Nigeria. I don't know when last you saw a monarch, traditional ruler, making that sort of move. So I think that this typifies, Professor Epiphany Azinge, the 14th Asaba of Asaba. So he wants to do things differently. He wants to think outside the box, and he wants to be impactful. And in fact, I must tell you, he's really been impactful. In the 1 year he's been on the saddle, on the throne, he's done lots of innovative things. Now, those of us who have known him for quite some time, we had our expectations. But I must tell you for a fact that he has come and exceeded those expectations by a wide margin. So he's done things that if I want to enumerate here, I will not leave here. But I expect that during the conversation, when I give my opening remarks, I'll be able to say a bit more than I'm saying now. He's done lots of things. And so part of it is he wants to move to corporate Nigeria. We have project ideas. He set up committees. And some of these committees have gone to work. And they've come with lots of ideas. He wants his domain, to be improved upon. He wants to concentrate on the welfare of our citizens, and he's doing exactly that. For instance, he made me the head of the Blue Economic Committee, and we came up with lots of projects. Things are happening in Asaba in terms of we have the beach estate project is going on and so on. We stuff like that. For instance, the port in Asaba, could be deepened, so that we can begin to have, large cargo ships, anchor in Asaba. It's not economic for businessmen down the southeast, down the south, to often go to Lagos, base in Lagos and move their cargoes, at high cost and at high risk from Lagos, down south. So that possibility is there. We want tourist attraction. We have water. We want to have hydro energy. We know the problems we have in this country with electricity. Renewable energy is very important. We want to attract tourism. Asaba is a prime tourist destination. So all this is happening. So that's exactly why we want to come and discuss with corporate Nigerians, those who would have the capacity and who have the potential, to be able to come and invest in Asaba.
And how are you balancing the traditional, the prestige of being a traditional ruler of the Asaba throne with the corporate professionalism required to pitch, to CEOs and international development partners to actually achieve this development agenda that he is setting out to do?
Well, I have some difficulties with getting what you're trying to say. Are you saying that you might have some? Yes.
No, I said, if you can hear me clearly, let me repeat myself. I'll just make myself a bit louder. The balancing act between the prestige of being a traditional ruler and, pitching his development ideas to CEOs and those that will help to actualize this dream.
Some difficulties. Well, if what you're saying is whether, in fact, as a traditional ruler, you should be doing that. I think that he's doing quite a lot on his own. For instance, if you go to Asaba and see what he has done in terms of welfare, you see what he has done in terms of the schools. He's gone to schools and he's taking infrastructure to school. He's taking desks and chairs to schools. He has taken books to schools. He's gone to hospitals. We don't have hospitals, within the Asaba environment. He's gone there and he's trying to equip them. They are trying to arrange for medical personnel, to attend to them and so on. He's done quite a bit. So I don't think that he's going to be handicapped. And of course, he has a very good relationship with the state government. I would expect that whatever initiative he comes up with, we'll be getting the blessing of the state governor. But of course, for us, we'll cross that bridge, when we get there.
I find it interesting because the question on my mind, the next question on my mind was the state governments, because some of the wonderful initiatives in the mind of the Asaba of Asaba, there are those who would say those are the responsibilities of any state government. So to come out and take those roles will look like some kind of crossing certain lines. So if you can give us an idea of how that syncs the role of a traditional ruler with that of local government administration in the state, or rather in that particular environment, and that of the state government. Please help us get an understanding so people know that this is what we call the a responsibility of the whole, sort of, a whole of society project, and not just something that is being done in pockets.
Well, okay, I think that our monarch is trying to act as a catalyst. You are right in saying that it has to be all hands on deck. So he wants to act as a catalyst. I talked about his good relationship with the governor. That makes some very strong statement. And then if he comes with project ideas, I said earlier on, that's the next bridge. So let's do this. Even what we're coming to Lagos to do is talk to the private sector. So we're not really government. And so we're going to talk to private sector, the corporate Nigeria, and those who operate in that space, for them to come and invest in Asaba. If they come to Asaba and they want to invest and they have issues with, for instance, getting land and so on and so forth, making sure that things are facilitated, making sure that they get approvals, our monarch is able to swing that. So we're not going to ask the state government. We're not looking for, in some respects, it's possible that you have a public sector partnership. That's a possibility. But then we are looking for private sector investors. So we'll come with ideas, and we expect that the investors in themselves, they're not for their Christmases. They're going to come and then do their own feasibility studies, and they find that it's profitable, and they're coming to invest. What our monarch is going to do in this respect is not going to look for money to put in that business, but he's going to give them some promises, give them some assurances, and be there to stand in the bridge, in case there are issues, some disputes and so on and so forth. That he doesn't need anybody's approval, to do. So he's not going to look for money, to invest. But what he's going to do is to use his personality, use his goodwill, use his standing. He has a very good standing to attract investments, to Asaba. That's what he wants to do. But he's not going to invest, and probably not going to ask the state government to put money there. So that's not the point.
Right.
So-
What are what are the key things that he's looking to address? Those developmental issues that he wants to take care of in Asaba.
The issues that I talked about the blue economy where I played. I mean, there are lots of things in Asaba. Asaba is a state, being a state capital. In fact, the fourth largest Delta State is the fourth largest state in Nigeria. So it's a big area, and we have lots of endowments. So we have gas. Almost 40% of the gas supply is in Asaba, and so there are all sorts of facilities. So there are things to use. There are assets. Available there. That we can leverage on. To bring investments. So I think that's exactly the way to go. I did say earlier on that he's not going to he's not thinking of, he doesn't have the money to put there to invest. That's not his place to invest. But he wants to act as a catalyst. He wants to be a pivot around which, things will begin to happen. And so he talks to private sector people, and then if he's able to convince them, to have, during this session, we're going to have an interactive education where they will ask the monarch question, and he's going to, I'm sure, give a good account to himself, the way he responds to those questions. And so we're going to do that. And our expectation is that, at the end of the day, we'll get some of them, being sufficiently convinced, to come and invest. But also, we mustn't forget the other plank of this mission. The plank is that our monarch wants to be seen to blazing the trail. He wants to be doing something which I've not seen done in this environment. Maybe it's happened before, but but I have not seen it. So he wants to come and have this conversation, and it goes on record that probably he's the first monarch, to be doing this. And so for us, this is also very important. So there are two sides to it. He wants to do something different. He wants to think outside the box, and then then we will hope that with sort of projects package we have, we just finished an investment summit in Asaba where we look through all this, and a whole gamut, and we have people who have been on this space for some time. They are going to come and make expert presentations, and we expect that by the time we finish, some people will be sold on some of these ideas, and then they'll come and invest. But for us, that's the next step after this meeting, this conversation.
Okay, so talk us through the event of this conversation. You say it's May 29th. Talk us through the what's to expect
program?
at the event. Yes.
Yes, well, we expect that people will come. That there'll be arrivals. We expect that we'll be there. Then monarch would have royal entry, and then we'll have salutations, the traditional salutations, and then he's going to bless. He's going to bless all of us. And cause the blessings of the Lord to come upon the environment as we do that. And then I would have to give my welcoming address as the chairman of the planning committee. And then after that, we are going to have presentations, that will cover the whole gamut, including the environment, all manner of projects will be projected, for people to, come and invest. And then after that, we'll have interlude. We'll bring down the tension in the environment. We'll have entertainment. We'll have maybe some traditional dancers. We'll have a sax person that we know is an expert in that area. He's going to give us some sax music, and then we'll go for dinner. So there's a buffet dinner, and then after the dinner, and then we'll have the interactive session. Well, at that time, we're all relaxed. The temperature is down. And then we expect that the corporate Nigeria will be up in arms, trying to find out what is on offer. So what incentives, they can get by coming to Asaba. And I'm sure a monarch is more than able, is more than prepared, to do this. And then after that, we'll begin to wind down. We'll have votes of chance, and then we'll begin to depart.
Right. Sorry, what are the sponsorship categories?
What?
The sponsorship categories.
Well,
You know,
sponsorships.
yeah.
We're looking for we have corporate sponsors. So we have individual sponsors. We have people who would sponsor tables at the event. That's exactly what it is. And then the corporate sponsors, it goes from 10 million to 5 million. We've not gotten much of that anyway. But so we have sponsors. And then we have the brochure for the day. We'll have space for people to advertise their product and pay some money. From 1.5 million, 1.5 million, 2 million, and it goes on that way. So that's exactly what it is. So, and we expect that those who are going to be the sponsors will have their logo on display, and of course the event itself is going to be streamed live. So I know for sure that Channels, John Momo has promised me, he's going to send a crew from Channels, to be at the event, and we know that a crew is also coming from Arise Television. So we'd expect that it's going to stream live, so people are going to be watching this thing. So there's so much scope for people to, to again sell their products, sell themselves, and sell their businesses. So I think that we look forward to a bumper evening. That's what it is. Yes.
Yeah, I assume from some of the things that you said earlier that the hope is that after this event, some public-private partnership initiatives will be activated. I want you to please take us through the specific frameworks, the PPP frameworks that are being designed to address, some of the chronic issues in Asaba, like flood management, network deterioration, and all sorts like that.
Well, we are trying to do this. I must tell you that not all the issues have been taken on board. We would expect that people would come, and once they have an interest, if you're an investor, you do your study, and then there'll still be some aspects of risk. But you take your risk, you'll be risk adverse. You take your risk in a very, calculated manner. So you look at it, and then, like I said before, acquiring land, you want to acquire land in a place to do an investment. You can have some issues about gaining title, to the land. So this is where a monarch can come. So if there are disputes, he uses a high office, to ensure, that those disputes are amicably resolved. So that there are also things, so people are looking for, even if you're looking for people to employ, it's going to be able to, get the community behind him to make sure that we get the best employees. So I think that's we're not able to say that, that upfront, that all the challenges are going to be taken on board. But life is about meeting challenges and then taking them on. And so as we go on, there are challenges, but as long as, you have insurance, that at the end of the day, you'll be able to get through those challenges. I think that's what's most important for most businessmen. If you don't want to take any risk, then you don't even invest at all.
Right. I'm sure you're going to have a very, very interesting time at that event, and we wish you all the best, and we wish the Asaba of Asaba all the best, as well as he has conversation with corporate Nigeria to bring about that much desired development in Asaba. He is a traditional ruler, and I'm sure he believes he owes the community a responsibility to see development during his lifetime as the traditional ruler of the area. And I'm sure the people will also, love him for it and cherish his time on the throne for that. Boniface Chizea, it's been wonderful having that conversation with you. And I wish you all the best during that time and all the success that you need. And I wish you a successful event, really. Really. Well done.
Thank you very much. We are counting on Channels also to be there, so we say thank you for what you've done.
All right.
We're still expecting more from you, like Oliver Twist, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
Good
you.
thing your name is not Oliver Twist.